Conquering Stress podcast. I'm Dr. Bill Janishak, and on this episode, I want to talk about if you really want to get rid of your chronic health conditions, or are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? I get this a lot, and it was really brought to head over the last couple of weeks. I've seen a lot more of really severe and chronic patients coming into the office, and what I'm seeing, and the reason that I want to even start on this whole podcast and talking about this subject was, I mean, for years and decades, I've been seeing people that's had something going on for a long time, but I've been seeing a lot of really bad stuff where it's just really getting to the point where it's impacting people's lives so much that that's all that they can deal around, but that's not even a word, but that they could really deal with on that. I had one patient had come in 2022. He started developing a little twitch in one of his thumbs, and just a little, like a little tremor. And, kind of concerned after a while. So he went and got checked out, and he was told that he had Parkinson's disease. And it was pretty debilitating. I mean, you can imagine what it's like to say, wow, you have this big diagnosis and all the weight and the things that means if someone, especially an authority says, oh, you have this disease, expect to start to lose your mental faculties, not being able to move and the like. And so this was a couple of years ago. And from that point on, they came into my office because the neck was stiff and they were just looking at some, chiropractic to help. And I do a pretty thorough history when I'm working with the patient. We want to find out everything that's going around with them. And so we can help as much as possible, or at least have some insights or see what they've done. So going through this history, I talked to his wife, whose wife was a great record keeper. And she said, well, I have all the tests, I have all the doctors, I have everything they've done through. And I said, well, bring them in. I want to see those. Because with my patients come in, I want to see all the histories that have. If you have old blood tests, you have old MRIs or films or ultrasounds, I want to see those. I want to see those for myself so I can put together, okay, what's really going on. So she brings back, and she has two binders, 3-inch thick of doctor's visits, plans that they had gone on, and all the results from this test. And they've literally been all over the world. They've been into Asia to get some blood tests done. They've gone to the Ukraine to get some stem cells. And anytime they would find something out, they would go and investigate. And we had all these records, and I sat down, and it was very interesting to me because I never get that thorough of a history. So I spent some time on there, and then I had some questions. So when they came back, I said, I see you've done all of that. I said, so you're here because the neck is stiff and you don't like that. And I said, but you have this diagnosis, and what's going on? What's the plan? And they looked at me like with the deer in the headlight, and they said, well, we did this, we went over here, and they told us this, and then we went over here, we did X, Y, and Z, and then I did 1, 2, 3, then I did A, B, and C. But doctor visit, I said, but there's no plan here. There's no, I mean, who's your primary care that's handling? And they didn't have one. They didn't have anybody that was interpreting, that was creating a plan on here. And I said, okay. And they go, well, and this didn't work, and that didn't work. And I had to unpack over there, and I had to sit down, which I do this a lot in smaller chunks, explaining people's blood test or explaining a diagnosis or going over it. I want the patients to know, but this was an extensive thing. So I spent probably an hour and a half with these people going around and say, okay, this is what your diagnosis is. This is what this meant. And they go, well, when we did that didn't work. And then we went over here, and then that didn't work. And I realized at that time is they didn't really have a plan. They were constantly gathering information, which is good because you want to know everything that's going on there. But when you're dealing with a chronic condition, and this can be a low back pain, this can be headache, neck pain, gut issues, or something, a bigger disease like this. And I said, well, the fighting plan, I said, you've done this right, but you shouldn't have done that first because of X, Y, and Z over here. And who was handling that? And I saw that you went over to the doctor for some treatment over here, but well, I didn't like that plan because it was too much, and I thought there should have. So these patients are trying to manage a difficult medical case by themselves based on how they're feeling, what Google says, and some criteria from one or two of the practitioners that they actually really trust. And what I found further was they were getting more and more distrustful of the doctors and the specialists that they were seeing because they weren't getting any results. There was nobody running the show. There was no one managing the case. And I see this all the time when people have something and they go, oh, I'm going to try this. And then they try something for a little while. And if they don't feel better or they don't get the outcome that they think that they should, then they abandon that and they jump to something else. And they never have time to get traction. Listen to me, folks. When you have a chronic condition, it may take a long time. It is not based on how you're feeling. I'll get somebody on my table and they may have a chronic condition that they couldn't move, they couldn't do like that. And I adjust them one time, I get up and they move around so much better. And I get excited and I say, oh my God, that's really good. And then they lean to the left and, doubling their range of motion and significantly decreasing their pain. And then they like the air comes out of them. They go, oh, it still hurts a little when I go back here. It's not gone like it was supposed to be magic. And so when the expectations are so high and you're not getting a realistic pathway about how you're going to heal, even if you're on the right path, you don't think that you're far enough down, or even if you think it isn't the right path because of how you're feeling or whatever, patients will tend to stop. And if you don't do anything for a long enough period of time, you're not going to get the results. And this is the time when you need someone somebody that's an expert in the way that the body works to help you along, to interpret the case, saying, okay, we're going to do this, and you should feel something like this, or not like that, or maybe you're going to experience this for a little while, or we're going to do some tests to see how this is working, because you're probably not going to feel anything for quite a while. But we've got to see how these things are working. You've got to have that pathway going on, otherwise people will quit early. And if you don't have enough direction, at no time in the life, and if you've been following me for a while, you've probably heard me say this before, at no time in our history have we had more resources at our fingertips. Dude, you can Google anything. TikTok's full of little reels with every hack and pieces of information that's going on. Our science and our research are finding things out that we just a couple of years ago we could have only imagined. We have all the resources at the very same time that we have the least direction. I'll get patients all the time that'll ask me about the thing that they saw on TikTok. Does that work? Is that real? Well, yeah, that's real. Well, I tried it and it didn't work. well, maybe it's not for you because all conditions are, well, my brother had a back pain or a neck pain or stomach ache or something like that, and he did it and it went away right away. And mine didn't. I said, you may not have the same condition, but no, it sounded the same. The misunderstanding of a lot of times of a chronic condition, whether, oh, it's genetic, I got it because, I sneezed one day or I slept wrong or like that. What you believe it may be coming from and what it's actually coming from can be two different, totally different places. And if you don't have a full understanding of not only what you have, but the treatment plan and the expected outcome, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to quit. And when you quit, the only thing that's guaranteed to happen is it's going to progress faster and faster and faster. And nobody wants that. So I'm here to kind of tell you that we want you to stay the course. And my advice to you guys is get all the information and get somebody that you can trust, that is looking out after your best interest and knows the outcome that you want and is familiar with all the aspects of the people that you're going to be dealing with. Because if you have a chronic and a debilitating condition like neurodegenerative disease, like a cancer, like heart disease, like, even a tough musculoskeletal headache, neck pain, stuff, something, chances are you're going to be working with a team of people. And that means you may have the chiropractor, you may have a nutritionist, you may have an orthopedist, you may have a neurologist, you may have a nephrologist, you can have a naturopath, you can have all these different things that are experts in these different pieces that still affect each other. And avoid and run away from someone that doesn't play well with others. Because I can guarantee you that I cannot do a spinal surgery. And if the spinal surgeon does not talk to the chiropractor, for instance, and say, well, you can't do this and that because you have to stay away from this and don't change your diet and don't, move, lay on the couch and just wait for my surgery to change the way your whole trajectory is going. And I'm going to be the hero. Run away. Because on a chronic debilitating condition is not a one-man show. It's not, I'm not the one-man show. The guy down the street is not one, and definitely your TikTok and Google videos are not going to be the same. What you need to do is find out a team of people that will talk to each other. All are on board with the same goal of getting you better, where you can have discussions with the other practitioners or caregivers or whatever it is so that they can get better. So let me go back for a second to the guy that I saw. He had this neural condition and they didn't know what to do with it. I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do if this was my family members or myself, if I was going through this. And I went, you did this, and that's awesome. But I suspect X, Y, and Z is going to be this. So we have to do this test. Based on if it comes out here or here, we would do this. And once that's in progress, we're also going to add, this other thing that we're going to do. And we're going to make sure that you have these exercises and these are movements. You've got to make sure that you're sleeping this much. And if you wake up at a certain time, that could mean that your circadian rhythm's off. That would tell us about a different hormone. So you need somebody that's going to sit down and manage the case. And that's exactly what I did. I said, this is what I would do. This is the map. Now, when you get a map, I guarantee you it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be nuances, but there's a direction that you're going to go into, and you've got to find somebody that's going to notice the nuances because you can't go by your feel. Sometimes you're going to feel like crap, and it's going to be a good sign because it may mean that you're healing and you're getting things off. You're sleeping a little too much, and once you're sleeping a little too much, That's because your body is getting things back together and it's doing something that it needs to do. It's getting stronger, but it takes a little while. Sometimes you might have a headache because, the you're not moving enough. Sometimes for a little while, you're going to have to do something that's not good for a small part of your body for a little while so you can heal an underlying cause or get control of it before you add back. So there's a lot of zigs and there's a lot of zagging around there. There's a lot of nuances that you need to get taken care of. And once you do that, then you can start on the journey, but it's a long journey. It's a long journey. And if you keep waiting for the one thing to get you better, to fix all that ails you, because when you have something chronic, it's from 1,000 little things that you've done over and over and over that it had little or no impact on you for a long time until it did. And when it finally hit its tipping point, that's when all the wheels fell off. Most of the patients will come in, they'll wake up one day and they go, I just feel bad enough to go and see what's wrong with that. And they think that their condition starts on the day when someone identified it. And it didn't. You have to dig deep and you have to get to the root cause of the issue, or it'll never go away. And this is the biggest problem that I have with general traditional treatment in the US is it's all symptom based. How do you feel today? Oh, well, my arm hurts. Well, here, take the arm hurts pill, or let's do the hurts surgery. Oh, my arm feels much better. I can't move it as much. Well, that's okay. You didn't need much anyways. But you know what? Ever since I took the arm hurts pill, I got this terrible pain in my stomach. Well, that's not my problem. Your arm feels better. I got rid of that symptom. It's not great, but it doesn't hurt anymore. So go about your business. They slap you on your head, tap you on your butt, and send you out the door to go to the tummy doctor. And the tummy doctor will go over and say, oh, well, you have tummy issues, and here's a tummy get fixing pill or some tummy fixing surgery or an excuse you're just getting older to learn to live with it. And that intervention fails. And it goes on and on and on. And that's interesting. When you talk about chronic debilitating things, I had another friend. He was a chiropractor, well known, great guy, great chiropractor in Orange County, California for years. And he got diagnosed with a chronic neurodegenerative disease that he was feeling the effects of. So he kind of believed it at first, and he went over and he said, okay, well, I sold his practice, and we're going, oh my God, that's terrible. And I saw him a couple of years later, healthy as a horse, walking around golfing. And well, how you doing? He goes, oh, I'm doing great. So, well, do you still have this condition? He says, well, technically I'll have some flare-ups here and there on this and that, but I felt great. I said, well, what'd you do? And he said he was seeing a neurologist, and they gave him some medicine, and it was supposed to slow the progression of it, just slow it. That was the goal. And he kind of went inside to his, he goes, well, I know this doesn't work. So he never fulfilled the prescription, and he went on doing adjustments and different types of that. He did some energy work, some body work, some exercise, dialed in his diet, everything we talk about, the dialing in the foundations of life. And I'm going, well, then what happened? He goes, well, I was feeling really good. So I went back, a few months later, and they did my blood work and they did the tests. And she came in, she was so happy. She goes, oh my God, I haven't seen healing like this in forever. He goes, and she's all, good, the medication's working. And she's just, and that's when he said, sit down, basically hold my beer. And he said, I never took your medicine. He says, I'm going to tell you something that I think. He says, I don't think you guys know the difference between the progression of the pathology and the progression of the side effects of your treatment. And she sat down and she goes, yeah, maybe you're right, because we're taught, if this is our intervention and this is what, because they never said cure or heal or or get rid of. They just said slow progression. And she goes, now you mention it, maybe we don't, because it's always been with an intervention. This is what we're taught to do. And it kind of brings me back to, when we do the things that we're traditionally taught, we're taught, oh, you've got to do X, Y, and Z. That's the way it's done. That's the gold standard. Sometimes you got to think out of the box, and you've got to think, if you're guaranteed to have this pathway, we're going to do this traditionally, and here's the progression you can if you're going to go down that road anyways, or you're going to end up in the same place, maybe you try something else to see how they're working, and you just compare them side to side. Say, if I've had this diagnosis for 8 months, here's where I would have been if I would have done, statistically, treatment here. If I've done, hippie treatment, whatever whatever you decide to do with your team, and you can compare yourself where you would be. That's how I would do that, because like I said, you're not necessarily going to be feeling better, have these miracle cures, but you may be feeling better, but maybe you're able to walk. And if you would have done traditional, maybe you wouldn't have been expected to be there. And then as you start getting better and better and better, you'll start to feel different. Can't tell you when, can't tell you, why or how. But that's what you want to look. You've got to look at yourself, your health for the long haul. But that's like it is in anything, right? You know that if you save 10 or 15% of every dollar that you make starting when you're 20, by the time that you're 60 or you're retiring, you have millions of dollars. You just keep changing. That's those small little things. If you know that if you take care of your car by changing the oil and making sure that all the lubricants and it's tuned up properly and you're taking care of it, it is statistically going to last longer for you than if you just ignore those things. Of course, it's the same. We're all systems. It's the same thing as with your health. If you're just doing these small little changes, and then eventually give them time to create the momentum and gain that traction, then you're going to be better off. You're going to start to see those things. And once you start picking a momentum, you can bypass healing and get into health and wellness and optimal living and all that other sunshine, rainbows, and unicorn stuff that we talk about a lot. But when you're dealing with a chronic thing, you've got to be dialed in. That makes sense, right? So let me tell you the downfall. Usually, the people who are getting these chronic conditions, they have a thought process, that a belief or a paradigm that actually got them in that situation. And they don't change because their identity is so strong in this, capacity, that when you're like this and you believe this, these are the things that we do. This is the way that we eat. And this is when we go to the doctor. And this is how many supplements we're willing to take. And this is how much exercise we're doing. And this is only good for, they start making up their own rules. And that's how an identity is made. It's the rules that I have for me that make me this person where I identify with. So a lot of the times we'll come up, and this is mostly in the elderly population, because you can imagine that if you had habits, lifestyle, and ways of doing things for 50, 60, 70 years. And all of a sudden, some hippie doctor, me, um, come back and said, well, yeah, we can help you, but you've got to change who you are. And which is what they're basically hearing. And you can imagine that goes over like a fart in church. Nobody wants to be around it. And they may, they may put up with it for a little while, but after a very short period of time, they'll find a reason not to continue. So that's the hardest thing to deal with, is laying it out and saying, you've got to do everything differently for a long period of time, and you may not see anything for a while, and be willing to keep going with the same enthusiasm as if you thought that if you did everything that you'd be healed tomorrow. So that's why I think it's really important to have a team around you, not just clinicians, not just the experts that know your body, but also maybe having a good prayer group that's over there for you, or some really good friends, some people that are going to keep you in a better mood, but at the same time supporting you and saying, you know what, I know that your goal is to be this better, and have this much energy and to be able to get this back. How are you doing? Not in a condescending way, but just they're the people that are supporting you. It's probably going to be one of the most important things that you'll have, because it's the mind. And you guys, again, if you've been following this, physical, chemical, and emotional, that's stress. And that's also the same components that go back into healing, health, and optimum living. Physical, chemical, and emotional. That emotional component is hard to measure. I can take x-rays and MRIs and I can see the physical. We can do blood tests and stool stuff and hormone tests to measure the chemical. The mind stuff, you can't even see a mind. How are you going to measure it? But it's there. So we've got to keep people in the right frame of mind, because even if you do all this stuff, there's no guarantee that you're going to overcome. My Parkinson patient, there's no guarantee. And by the way, on the little testing that we did, it wasn't Parkinson's. It's Parkinson's-like symptoms, but there was something else other than the diseased factor that was killing those brain cells. It was giving him everything as if it was caused from the same thing, same outcome, but it was a different etiology or starting point that we had that we could have turned around, or at least improved. But as it turned out, it was to be the cause of this was heavy metal poison that was never done, because they were looking to take care of the symptoms. And we want the symptoms to go away, definitely. And at the same time, get rid of the damaging, the root cause. So anyways, but if you had that team, you've got to have somebody that can figure out which path we're going on. And you have to, somebody's got to manage it. There's got to be a captain of the ship that's going to say, we're going to go here and here's the direction, with some reason why. Because with all that stuff, there's still no guarantee that you're going to get all better. The only guarantee you can make it that if you don't change anything, you're going to get the same result that made all the statistics that you're reading about. So it's tough, because it's time and money, while there can be limitations of those. If your life really depended on it, you could find more time, and most people can actually find more money. We have more resourceful than we think that we are. But the biggest limiting factor is no direction, and nobody to manage the case well enough so that the patient understands and all the other doctors understand together and putting that team together. And you can't do that in a 3.5 minute HMO visit. There's just too much stuff to unpack. And you need to find someone that's willing to take that time to break these things down for it. And but you'd imagine what it's like that when we do get these cases, they turn around, they stay the course, and in a year, 18 months, 2 months, sometimes 3 years later, they've forgotten how bad that they were and putting it around. It's the management of the cases, and quit jumping around trying to build traction on something that you can't get. It doesn't make any sense. So when you get a plan and a team, if you want to get rid of the chronic conditions, you want to get the team together with a plan. Yeah, it's like the Magnificent Seven. You're gonna grab all these people with the best resources, and you're gonna go conquer the world. Get that plan, evaluate the process, regularly inspect the process to make sure that it's going. Talk to each other, the professionals on the team, and you as the patient sits there with them, and you do not leave the table or the conversation until you have a clear understanding about what you're doing. You're not a passive representative in your own treatment. You're active, and you ask for clarification. Can you make it simpler? I'm not quite sure. Is it like this? And verify. And your team members should be quizzing you from time to time to make sure that you understand. You want to recognize the little successes. Said, okay, well, on your next blood test, we want to see X, Y, and Z happen. And if that happens, that means we're on the right track. If we see A, B, and C, then we're off a little, and we're going to have to, look at something else, because this is not a full-blown, recipe. This is an art form. This is the art form of healthcare, because you don't know what you don't know until you get to those decision points. But you've got to get to the point where you got to make a decision. You're getting the feedback, and it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. So I just wanted to get that out there to you guys, because it's just been weird. Just the last several weeks, I've been seeing so many people with like chronic conditions, and there's no strategy, there's no plan for it. They just have these things, and it's like they're spinning in circles. So I wanted to get this out to you, what to do when you have this chronic condition that you're truly trying to get over. And so I want to say that if anybody's out there that that has a chronic condition, they're suffering with something, and they're just finally, I'm sick and tired of living like this. I can't live like this. It's not going away. What do I do? No one's getting me answers. Stop. Send them this podcast. Let them get the information. They can contact me if they want to contact me. And if I can't help them, maybe we can find someone that can. We're here. The podcast exists to conquer stress, but increase health and wellness. So I hope this helped. This is Dr. Bill Janishek, your Belinda Family Chiropractic and Integrative Medicine. Just trying to get some love out to you. So go out there, click, subscribe, share your people, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace out.